Welcome to Backstage, Small Church, Big Vision.
Volunteer leader, do you believe that your ministry would be a lot better if you were paid full time? So let's get into it. What's up, Backstage leaders? I'm Kevin Gollihue.
I'm Andrew Gravagna.
And this week's topic is the struggles and benefits of being a full-time or a volunteer leader.
But before we get into that, let's get into some Backstage news.
So this week in Backstage news, I want to preference what I'm about to say with this. We record on Mondays and we release on Saturdays. So at the time of this recording right now, last week we got some sad news in the life of Hillsong and the life of New York City, Long Island area, that Carl Lentz sadly got fired.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's a shame. You know, there was a few things that were released, like, okay, there was a moral failure, there was issues with leadership and breaches of trust. It's a shame.
It's a shame.
And there's going to be a lot of us who are going to feel the need to cast the first stone, to, judge him, judge Hillsong, say this is what happens when you have celebrity pastors, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, this is somebody's life. And this is a full-blown church that is getting affected by this. So it's not a time to say, oh, it doesn't surprise me, or this is why pastors shouldn't be celebrities.
Or look cool.
Yeah, like this is a time
that's not the reason.
to just pray.
Yeah.
To just pray for restoration for the church and pray that they fill that role with someone who's able to do the job and affect New York City, because listen, we need it right now.
We do.
And so we also want prayer for Carl Lentz, his wife, and his kids. This is a time for restoration. And by all accounts, all evidence, it's being handled in a healthy manner from both the church and Carl Lentz, based off of Carl Lentz's Instagram posts and the release statements from Hillsong.
Yeah, if I say something real quick, like just be on a serious note, we as pastors, leaders, and Christians in general, we have to be careful how we react to these situations, because no matter what, the world is looking.
Yeah.
These high schoolers, these kids in your youth group, are watching. The way we act on sin and the way we act on moral failure, if we don't act in the way Jesus would, in a loving and graceful way, I'm not saying excuse it, but we have to be careful that we're not, like you said, casting the stone.
Yeah.
We're loving, Bible-believing Christians, and we need to pray, because there's power in prayer.
Yeah.
And there's always room for restoration.
And there's pain and there's hurt right now.
Yes.
And honestly, a lot of us pastors don't know what it's like to be at that level. And I've heard it said, with every level, there is a different devil. So it's easy for us to be on the outskirts of it and say, how could you? I would never cheat on my wife or whatever. Well, listen, I've been married for a year. Temptation is there. If you don't guard your heart, it's going to happen. So you need to sow seeds of repetition, of discipline, and make sure you take care of yourself and take care of your wife, your family. But before we go into the topic of this week, make sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell so you get all notifications of everything we do. Also, if you're an audio listener, make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. We are also on social media, so please follow us so you can stay up to date on everything we're doing. So let's get into the struggles and benefits of being paid full-time or being volunteer.
So first, we want to talk about volunteering, and specifically, we want to talk about the struggles of volunteering. I know you've volunteered at one point in your ministry. I know in the beginning of ministry, and I'm still volunteering. I am a volunteer in my church. I'm a volunteer pastor in my church, and I want to say first off, there's nothing wrong with being a volunteer pastor.
Not at all.
At all. It may not be the ideal situation at first, because you can look at a person like Stephen Furtick, all these guys that are getting paid money, whatever it is, right? Or just a normal person that's getting paid, right? And they're doing something they love and called to do, and they're getting paid, and that's pretty dope. That's pretty cool,
it is.
right?
Yep.
But that might not be the situation that you're in, and there's some cases that don't allow you to do that,
Yep.
right? And so the first thing I want to talk about struggle is that you have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
Because you're a volunteer pastor, you're also a volunteer. You know, you have to have not a volunteer. You have to be full time somewhere else, right?
You
You got to get paid. You have to,
You have to
pay
take care of yourself, your family.
Yeah, even if you're with your parents. Like I'm with my parents, right?
Yep. But you still have to pay.
I'm young.
Yeah.
I'm 22. I'm still with them. I'm saving up money. Got to save up money.
Yep.
But I'm working full time somewhere else, and I'm also in ministry, right?
Yep.
And so being that I have to put extra amount of time into my ministry now.
Mm-hmm.
And you should put a lot of time in your ministry. It shouldn't be just like a
Yep.
side thing at all.
Yep.
But because you have something focused on your mind, and I want to, and it could take away from your personal time too.
I know. To take care of yourself.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself. You have to pay your own bills.
Yeah. And your relationships, like we talked about last week, our relationship with our family.
Yep.
Right.
It's important.
And I wanted to say again, I want to say this is my second thing, right? Ministry isn't a part-time job.
No.
And so it's not like you're full-time.
It may
you're
be
full-time
listed
somewhere-
volunteered or part-time, but
Yeah, and
No.
we were talking about
No.
that, and it's like my dad's always said that. He's like, they're like, oh, you know, you're part-time pastor, or you're just a full-time pastor. He's like, no, I'm full-time business
Full-time.
owner, and I'm also a full-time pastor.
yeah.
And you might have a certain time or days that you're in the church, but there are situations that somebody's gonna call you at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yep.
Right? It's happened to you. It's happened to me, where you have to be on the ball. It's a lifestyle, right? You're called to do this. Your passion is being a pastor, right? And that's not just in preaching, and that's not just in talking to people in the church, but it's guiding them through their life at home, in their personal lives, right? And so it's not a part-time job.
Not a part-time job.
And so it's extra amount of pressure on you. And it can be a real struggle. It's something that I know all of us pastors struggle with. And if you're a pastor that might be going through this, you're not alone. We've gone through it. We're still going through it. And that's why we made this podcast, right? It's to encourage and empower small church leaders that go through stuff like this as a volunteer, especially, that they're not alone. And you're not the only one. And so now I want to talk about the benefits.
The benefits. You never thought you'd hear that, right? There's benefits of not being paid.
There's a benefit. There's a
Yep.
benefit. Let me give you a real good benefit of being a volunteer. Number one, you're just because you're not getting paid, the church can reallocate the funds to somewhere else.
Yep. It
Right.
gets you snacks for youth or children or, something.
You need them Doritos.
Yeah,
You need
man.
them No, but in all seriousness,
Yeah.
they could put that extra money that they're saving up, because it might be in the situation in your church that where we're in, we can't pay the full-time pastor, but we could put it into something like lights or into audio, into
Make the production look sweet.
maybe also into the kids ministry, which is so amazing,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because you're a kids ministry pastor.
I tell you what, man, if you had the option of taking, like, let's just say $250 a month, pocketing it or putting it towards helping you in a ministry, man, you'd get a lot farther if you put that money in your ministry rather than your pocket.
Right. And so
It'll help you out.
And whatever ministry that you're in, it'll help your specific ministry, youth pastor, worship leader, kids minister, a kids pastor, whatever you are, it can help you and jumpstart your ministry.
Because there's some of you youth leaders out there right now that are being asked to lead a youth ministry, and you don't have a gifting of teaching, and you spend hours, hopefully not too long, but preparing a lesson. Now
Right.
you have a curriculum, and that just fast tracks your whole week. So that could take 15 hours of time that you may take, and streamline that's like maybe 2, maybe 3. It's important. It takes a lot off of you.
Yeah, it does, and it takes away that struggle, like we said, right?
Yep.
And so another benefit of volunteering and being a volunteer, people in the church, in your ministry, can see the heart you have for being a pastor or a leader in the church, right? Or your heart in just the church in general. You're not getting paid. There's no physical reason why you're doing what you're doing. I've had so many
there's other reasons to not do it.
I'm such a good. I feel like I'm not.
Oh, man.
I feel like I've had so many examples of it where my dad knows some real powerful people in the community and there's those people in general, right? And they ask me what I'm doing with my life, and I'm telling them I work with my dad, but I'm a pastor. I say I'm a pastor, and they're shocked. They're like, somebody that's 22, that's 22. Being a pastor, why is he doing that with his life?
Yeah.
First thing,
why aren't you living your life? I am.
Yeah. Why aren't you living your life being a normal 22-year-old?
I've gone there.
I'm a pastor's kid, and I've had the honor and blessing being under parents in a family that serve the Lord, and installed into me that God's purpose and plan for my life is more important than anything that could benefit me physically, emotionally here right now.
So if you got a paycheck, it doesn't matter if you did or did not. It's just that's your call. It's your heart is there, man.
That's it.
And sadly, there's some people where there's the opposite, right? Some people get paid full time, and they may even start losing their heart, and it turns into a job. That's the benefit of being a volunteer as well. Is that like, it's not a 9 to 5. You know, you're more passionate about it because you're pouring your heart and your soul in your free time. That's important. But that actually brings us into full-time leaders. So let's get into that. So let's get into the struggles and benefits of being a full-time church leader. And the reason why I'm specifically saying church leader is because you could be paid full-time and not be a pastor. You could be paid full-time, be a worship leader, which in my opinion is pastoring. I'm a worship leader. Some churches just call it worship leader. You could be a worship leader. You could be full-time AV. You could be full-time in content creation.
You could just be a musician, right?
Yeah. So this is not just talking about pastors. This is for leaders in general. But here's a struggle that I found being full-time. I just became a full-time pastor. My whole ministry has been volunteer up until now. This past January is when I started at the church I'm at now, and I'm blessed. But there is some struggles. And I'd say the first one that I felt right away is expectations. When you're a volunteer, you have, and again, I'm not saying you do this. I know for a fact I did this, and I'm not saying any of you have done this, but sometimes you can use it as a crutch. I can't. I can't. The reason why this isn't working is because I'm only volunteer, blah, blah, blah. But reality is, I was using that as a crutch. And guess what? God took that crutch away, and now I got to step up to the plate and hit a home run. But the problem is when you feel the need to hit a home run, you end up striking out. You start swinging big, and you strike out.
That's good.
It's a struggle. You feel pressure to perform because, again, you're now paid. People's hard-earned money, their tithe is going into your pockets. And again, it's not wrong. It's not wrong that is happening, but you have that expectation now. Is that you feel this pressure to perform, and especially coming from a volunteer role. When I was volunteer, like I said, I use it as a crutch. So when I got this position, I felt instant pressure that I needed to do the next best thing, that I needed to grow the ministries, that I needed to expand. And boy, does it take away from the power of God in my life. Because it's not my power. It makes you feel like it lives and dies based off of you, and it doesn't. And so these pressures that you feel, like when I was volunteer, I wanted to be paid full-time so that I can spend full-time hours and blah, blah, blah. But man, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure, especially if you have a right heart about it. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I mean, right now as a volunteer, I feel like a lot of pressure just because of who my dad is and you know the legacy he's brought to the church and to ministry in general. So cool. My dad's cool. My dad's cool. Hope you're watching this, Dad. You're cool. All right.
Yes.
I get brownie points for that.
That's right.
But I felt a lot of pressure just as I know a pastor's kid, but I know other volunteers too will feel just the pressure in that case. I don't imagine having that and then also being paid. I can only imagine how much more pressure.
Yeah, it adds on. It's something I didn't expect.
Right.
But and the other thing is that, the other struggle with it is the workload. Again, I've been a volunteer pastor, so this is not bashing volunteers at all. But when your lead pastor calls and says, I need you to do this, you're full time. You have to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have another work schedule. You aren't working 9 to 5 at Lowe's. You're not opening or closing like I did. I had the ability to say, no, I'm working. That's my job. So, part of my job description is, it's always a joke for the youth pastors, the associate pastors is like, this is your job description. The last point is, and whatever the lead pastor says. Boy, dude.
That's good. I didn't see that one.
I thrive in that position. And sometimes that's a struggle. Sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes you start thinking, why am I doing this? But it doesn't matter why you're doing this, because you're paid by the church to do it. So do it. Buck up, man. You got to do it. So it really is a struggle. It's something I did not foresee happening to me when I came into full-time ministry. But I've heard my brother-in-law and other people talk about this, and I didn't believe it. It's there. So your workload, you feel like you're doing a lot before, and you are. Don't get me wrong. But when seasons change in the church, you get a lot of workload added onto you. You never know, and you don't have the luxury of saying, I have another job somewhere. But there are benefits of being full-time. When you're volunteer, you literally, because you're working full-time, some of them are going to school. Like I was working full-time and going to school and being a volunteer pastor. So like I couldn't focus on the ministry that I was on, the ministry or ministries I was running. Most of the time I've been doing worship and youth. You can't focus on one or the other. There's seasons where worship was great and youth sucked. And then vice versa. Yeah, and it's because you couldn't have time to focus. If you're doing 40 hours a week and then 25 hours of schooling, and then you just don't have the ability to, I'm sorry, that's a struggle. That's not a benefit. That's a benefit of being full time, is because that's a big struggle for volunteers, is that you don't have the time and focus that you can. But when you're full time, you do. You really do. You can sit down, pray, read your Bible, think, pontificate on what the next step is going to be.
Latte.
What the next step is going to be. You really can. So that is a ginormous benefit. This one may be personal. I hope it's not. I hope that this is happening to you full-time workers out there. But discipleship. As a full-time pastor, you're literally paid to disciple. But not only that, you get paid to be discipled. So one of the biggest benefits of being full-time here is that I spend a lot of time with my lead pastor. He's been amazing. He's been leading me. Feel like I bother him too much about everyday silly things, but he's been leading me. He's been growing me. He's been discipling me, just living life in general. So if I wasn't paid full-time to do that, I don't think I'd be as much as the leader that I am now just within this past year, because I have the benefit of actually spending a lot of time with him. But also, so getting discipled is great, but you also get to disciple. So when I was a youth pastor, I always struggled with aligning my work schedule and school schedule with being able to take out teens and young adults. I always struggled with that. I love taking teens out to dinner, a group of them, or taking young adults out together, or playing basketball. You have free time to do that because that's your job, and it's great. So that's cool. There are some really solid benefits of being full time. But listen, we all have struggles. So if you're volunteering and you're listening, be like, oh man, I wish I was paid. It doesn't change the fact that there are still problems. Honestly, there are.
Yeah, and it's probably more problems. Yeah, like I said, there's more problems, there's more struggles, more pressure. It's never greener on the other side, right? It's never, your situation is going to be different than somebody else's, right? There's always going to be somebody that's going through more. And so be careful what you wish for. it probably is amazing. Like you said, there's some benefits, but there's so much struggle too.
Yep.
Right.
But that actually brings us to my favorite part of the week, question of the week.
The question of the week.
Yep.
How can we help you?
Yeah, so we're on episode 9 of Backstage Small Church Big Vision, and it's been great so far.
It has.
But we want to get to know you a lot more, listener. Listen, this whole episode's been about, the struggles and benefits of full-time and volunteer, but at the end of the day, we both know ministry is difficult. There are many things that can go wrong, things that go great, but we want to be a resource to you. We want to be an ear to listen. So please reach out to us. In the description below, we'll give you information to contact us, but also feel free to just message us on Facebook or Instagram.
Do it. And so that does it for today's episode.
Yep.
And so make sure that you like and subscribe and follow on all social platforms, and on YouTube, make sure you hit that bell.
That's right.
And so
We're out.